The secret to a simpler, more meaningful life isn't adding more, it's removing what no longer serves you and creating space for what truly matters. Bruce Lee put it best when he said, "It's not the daily increase, but daily decrease. Hack away at the unessential." So today I'm sharing 40 tiny things I quit to simplify my life. Now on their own they may seem small, but combined they make all the difference. I've grouped them into 5 categories: money, time, minimalism, health, and mindset. And hopefully 1 or 2 of the items on this list will inspire you to simplify your own life. Let's dive straight in. Money. Shop without a list. Going shopping without a shopping list often leads to impulse buys. When I go to the supermarket and I'm hungry and I go without a list, I tend to buy all the bad foods. So a shopping list gives me focus. If it's on the list, I know I need it and I thought it through, so I'm not spending money I don't want to spend. Choose cheap price over quality. Choosing a low price over quality can backfire. Trust me, I've learned it the hard way. You get what you pay for. In Dutch we have this saying, goedkoop is duurkoop. I guess the English equivalent of that is buy cheap, buy twice. And I don't want to buy twice just because I was cheap the first time. Order takeout. A lot of takeout food is fast food, which I try to avoid. And many of the healthier, fancier options on those platforms are just as expensive as what you pay in a restaurant. Sometimes even more with the delivery and platform fees added to the price of the food. So if I'm paying that kind of money, I'd rather go out and enjoy the actual restaurant experience. Sign up for raffles and prize contests. Many years ago, I would regularly sign up for online raffles or prize contests. Maybe you've seen them, you could win an iPad or a car even. But I never won anything. Like this iPad I paid for with my own money. And I would end up on a ton of mailing lists that I didn't seem to be able to unsubscribe from. So that cured me. I no longer give away my email for the chance of winning something that in most cases I don't even really need. Not pay off my credit card debt when it's due. Credit card interest rates can be ridiculously high, often above 20%. And if you don't pay it off on time, that interest compounds along with the actual loan. And you can get stuck in a vicious cycle if you're not careful, where you now need to borrow more money just to cover your credit card payments. I don't want to go there. That's why I limit my credit card use to situations where it's the only option, like when booking a hotel. And I pay off my balance every single month. Be penny wise, pound foolish. I'm all for saving money and being intentional about how I spend it, but you can't overdo it and get your priorities mixed up. I mean, nobody became financially independent by brewing coffee at home. So instead of treating small, insignificant savings as the holy grail of money management, I focus on making smart financial decisions that truly move the needle, like learning about personal finance, building my own business, and staying out of debt. Time. Watch short-form videos. I don't like short-form content like TikTok or YouTube Shorts. When you're consuming short-form content, you may think you're just relaxing, but I've never heard of someone feeling mentally refreshed after a 2-hour scrolling session. I know I'm generalizing, I'm sure there's valuable short-form content out there, but jumping from one 5 to 10 second video to the next just conditions your brain to crave constant novelty, which makes everything else seem boring. I much prefer long-form content, like long-form YouTube videos, podcasts, or books. That is just content that I find much more meaningful and inspiring. X or Twitter. So I was never a big Twitter user. I'm sorry, I just can't say X. It just sounds weird still till this day. But in 2024, as I was gearing up to see the Netherlands do well at Eurovision, our candidate, Joost Klein, got disqualified. And there was this 1 to 2 days of uncertainty where we weren't really sure what had happened and if he was going to be allowed to perform in the final. I got sucked into the drama and Twitter was the place to get the most recent updates. Now there were a few interesting tweets, but I'd say most of it was just pure verbal garbage. There's no other way of putting it. And I was like, man, I can't imagine what this does to your mindset if you consume this on a daily basis. I don't need that in my life. Reply to emails right away. Your inbox is full of everyone else's agenda, not yours. But I want to be in control of my time, so I reply to emails on my own terms and only when I have time. Also, if you reply right away, it can spark a whole back and forth over email that I'd rather avoid. Rely on my memory. In Getting Things Done, David Allen wrote, "Your brain is for having ideas, not holding them." So when I have an idea, I try to offload it as soon as possible into a Notes app. I use Apple Notes. That way, I can keep my mind clear and fully focus on the thing that I'm doing in the moment. Have phone notifications on. The BlackBerry I had when I worked as a corporate lawyer had this red light that would flicker at, this is not a BlackBerry, but like it was at the top of the phone, and it would flicker whenever I got a new email. And I got so attuned to it that half of the time I would grab my phone thinking it was flickering and that I had a new email, when in reality there was no email and there had not been any red flickering. That put me on constant high alert. Unfortunately, a lot of these emails were important, so I couldn't turn that feature off. Now I no longer work as a lawyer, so this is no longer part of my life. I noticed that a lot of notifications that smartphone apps want to send you, they're really not important. So I turn all of them off. Answer phone calls from unknown callers. Few people have my phone number, and the ones that do rarely call me unannounced. So when I receive a phone call from an unknown number, I assume that they don't want me to know who they are. So why would I pick up then? A lot of the times, these are companies that are trying to sell me something. So if you hide your number, you can't expect me to pick up. Text instead of call. I once had a colleague whose girlfriend went on exchange to South Africa, and they'd agreed to mostly text with each other. But they quickly went back to calls because they would argue all the time. Texting is great for superficial stuff and short updates, but it can't replace face-to-face communication. So much of our communication is in visual cues and tone of voice and so on. It's more intimate and connecting. That's why I prefer calls over texting when I really want to hear what's going on with my family or friends. Play online poker. When I was a lawyer, I picked up poker as a hobby. And this was the time of the poker boom. In the Netherlands, poker pros Marcel Loeske and Noah Boeken even had their own TV show on national TV. And their life seemed like a dream. No job, no suits, no having to go to the office every day. They got to live life on their own terms. So I read a ton of poker books, I played a lot online, and it's safe to say I kind of got a bit obsessed. I was winning more than I was losing, but I never got anywhere close to being able to quit my job to start pursuing poker professionally. In the meantime, playing online poker came at the expense of my social life, my dating life, my sleep, really at the expense of my well-being. I sat behind a computer all day at the office, only to come home at night to do the same thing, but now I was playing poker. Then on April 15, 2011, the FBI shut down the top poker sites, including the one that I was playing on, Absolute Poker. In the poker world, this is known as Black Friday. And it really was a Black Friday because I lost almost $10,000 in profit on that day and I never got it back. Yeah, that's not a fun memory. So I quit on that day. I took it as a sign of the universe to, get my act together. And I did. I've never really played online poker since. I have played poker at real tables with real people, but rarely. And when I do, the dealing is a lot slower, but it's much more fun because there's real people around me. Journal every day. I used to journal every day, but I wouldn't always have something to write, so I'd force it. It would take valuable time away from projects I was working on. So now I only journal when I really want to. Show up late. For many, it's socially acceptable to show up late with some vague excuse. But I've come to see showing up on time as a sign of respect, both to the other person and to myself. Also, showing up late for a meeting or at the airport, it's stressful. I'd rather arrive on time and arrive feeling relaxed. Minimalism. Impulse purchases. When I was a student, I liked to play FIFA and Tekken 3 on my PlayStation. Then, when I started my career, I moved out and gifted my PlayStation to my roommates. I didn't really play video games for 5 to 6 years. Then one particular Saturday, I was really hungover and I was like, man, I really want to play video games today. So I drove to a local media store, bought an Xbox and 4 games, Batman and also the latest FIFA. I got home, I started playing, and very quickly I realized, wow, FIFA got so much more complicated than the FIFA that I was playing when I was a student. And I ended up never really playing it again after that one afternoon. That was an expensive lesson. I bought something on impulse only to never use it again. Now I'm much more intentional about how I spend my money. If I have this impulse to buy something, I'll pause and ask myself, does this really add value to my life? Sometimes I'll even go home first and think about it. It's like getting a donut. It's much harder to resist when you're in the donut shop than when you're at home. Hold on to things just in case. In my experience, just-in-case items like instruction manuals, random kitchen gadgets, or cables are rarely used and they take up valuable space. As a minimalist, I want to be intentional about the things I surround myself. Clutter is like this annoying roommate that doesn't pay rent and doesn't help with the household chores. I don't need that in my life. And by the way, if you're new to minimalism, you would like to get started with it, but you don't really know where to begin, you might be interested in my How to Get Started with Minimalism checklist. You can download it in the description below. Keep clothes I don't wear. This is related to just-in-case items. Some clothes just aren't comfortable anymore. Maybe you have a pair of gold pants or a shirt that realistically you will never be able to fit in again. In my case, I've donated them. Someone else is much better off with them. Accept promotional freebies. When you go to conferences, job fairs, or sometimes even the mall, they often hand out these promotional freebies. You know, pens, keychains, USB sticks, or back in the day, mouse pads even, with this like branded logo on them. I found that those things just often end up causing clutter in my home, so I don't accept those anymore. I don't want to bring them into my home. See minimalism as a numbers game. Minimalism is not about paring down to a fixed number of possessions. Minimalism is a menu, not a to-do list. You can cherry pick. A student has very different wants and needs than a single parent of two. But minimalism is a lifestyle that can help them both. It's not restrictive. Minimalism has minimal rules. Buy knickknacks. When I first started living on my own, I was super excited. Every other weekend, I would go to the mall to buy things to fill my apartment with. Now, some things I really needed, like a bed or furniture, but I would also bring home a lot of knickknacks. Things that would look great in the store, but when I came home, they didn't look as great anymore, especially as I started to accumulate more and more. It's safe to say I went a little bit overboard. So when I learned about minimalism, these knickknacks were some of the first things that needed to go. Now I only have really two knickknacks. I have this Totoro figurine, which is from one of my favorite movies, and I have this Noel Gallagher themed mini guitar that I bought in London more than a decade ago. I really love this one because Oasis is my favorite band, and I'm super excited that they have reunited. Buy cookbooks for recipes. I used to buy a lot of cookbooks, but I rarely cooked from them because many recipes in those cookbooks, especially if they were written by some fancy fine dining chef, had ingredients that I couldn't get a hold of, or it would be some like really weird spice or ingredients that, I had to go through a lot of trouble to get, and then I would only need 1 teaspoon. What am I going to do with the rest? Or it could take hours to make that recipe, and I didn't have that kind of time. So I got real with myself and I donated all my cookbooks. Now when I need a recipe, I just look it up online. There's so many great recipes out there, and I especially love video tutorials where I can just follow along. Health. Drink soda. I never liked soda, even when I was younger. Drinks like 7-Up and Fanta, it just tastes so chemical to me. They're packed with added sugar and bad for your teeth, so I just drink water, tea, and coffee. Eat fast food. When I was a teenager, McDonald's was my favorite restaurant. I remember going on a weekend class trip to Lille in the north of France, and I spent more than half of the weekend playing cards in the local McDonald's. I'm not proud of it. But now I do care about my health, so I'm mostly skipping the burgers, the fries, and the pizza for foods that actually nourish me. Smoke cigarettes. I smoked for about 7 to 8 years. I had my last cigarette in 2005. Now, smoking is obviously unhealthy, but it's also very expensive. And when I was a smoker, I felt more and more like a pariah in society. And I reckon now there's even fewer places where you can light up. So I'm glad I quit. Ignore my body's rhythm. Workaholics might say, I'll sleep when I'm dead. Well, I'd rather sleep tonight and get a good 8 hours of it. I go to bed around 11 p.m., sometimes even earlier, and I wake up between 7 and 8 a.m. Naturally, I don't set my alarm clock. I just wake up at the end of my sleep cycle. Rest is important. Ignore my health over productivity. I used to see my body as a way of getting my head into meetings, but I learned that not listening to my body's signals is a bad idea. I had continuous headaches for 1.5 years. So now I'm much more in tune with the signals of my body. I'm a much better listener. Not doing the dishes at night. Walking into the kitchen in the morning to see a sink full of dirty dishes feels like bringing yesterday's problems in today's world. And I like to start my day refreshed with a clean slate. It's not much work to do the last dishes before going to bed, but in my experience it makes a massive difference in how I start the next day. Keep lights on in a room when I'm not there. If nobody's in the room, there's no need to keep the lights on. Plus, it saves on my utility bill. Shower every day. Unless you exercise daily, there's really no need to shower every single day. And it might even be better for your skin and for your hair. Not that I would know, I have very little of it, But I shower every other day now, and the least it does is that it lowers my water bill a bit. Mindset. Watch horror movies. I don't like horror movies. I saw the movie Hellraiser Bloodline. It's with Pinhead, that guy with all the pins in his head, in the cinema when I was a teenager in the 90s. And I think it scarred me for life. I guess it's also my Christian upbringing. I was raised to believe that things like hell and demons were real at an impressionable age. And now it's kinda in my system. I made an exception for the Netflix show Stranger Things, because that really is a good show. But I will say going to the bathroom in the middle of the night with the lights turned off, hours after seeing a Demogorgon, wasn't the most peaceful experience of my life. Think I'm right. On the podcast, I heard relationship therapist Esther Perel once say, do you want to be right or do you want to be in a relationship? I found that the quickest way out of an argument with my girlfriend is to just say, you're right. And I have no trouble saying that, because baby, if you're watching this, you know you're always right. Beat myself up about past decisions. If only I'd bought Bitcoin in 2013. If only I'd chosen to study something else. If only. You and I, we probably both have moments in our life where if we could go back in time, we would make different decisions. But what's done is done. So all I can do is just be the best version of myself in the present moment. Think I can become a millionaire by following a billionaire's morning routine. Getting up at 6 a.m. or meditating for 15 minutes in the morning didn't make Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates rich. It's a mix of vision, resources, hard work, yes, but also luck, meaning right place, right time. Take Bill Gates, for example. He went to Lakeside High School near Seattle, one of the few schools in the world that had a computer in the late 1960s. Bill Gates later said, if there had been no Lakeside, there would have been no Microsoft. Say my country is the best. I once met an American in Laos. He was really enjoying his travel through Southeast Asia, and we really clicked. He told me that he had really wanted his best friend to join him on this trip. But his friend had told him, why would I want to travel? I already live in the best country in the world. I have so many things to say about that, but I just don't understand that. How would you even know if you live in the best country in the world if you've never seen other countries? Plus, it's not like it's a competition. There's no awards, no medals that are handed out to the best country in the world. Why not appreciate the diversity? Some things are great here, other things are great elsewhere. All the more reason to travel and explore. Be too hard on myself. We often judge ourselves in ways we would never judge another person. You know, when I make a mistake, I could say, I'm an idiot. But I would never say that to a friend. And I want to be kind to myself. So now if this happens and I notice this internal negative self-talk, I try to stop and ask, would I say this to a friend? And if not, I shouldn't say it to myself either. Worry about aging. I'm in my 40s and I'm a bit less energetic than I was in my 20s. I'm going bald, I have wrinkles, and I have reading glasses since last year. All things I could worry about. But I don't, because I am much happier than I was when I was in my 20s. I care less about how people perceive me, I know myself better, and I'm more grateful for being alive. Be afraid to fail. I embrace failure these days, not because I like to mess up, but because there's no success without it. And it isn't really failure if you learn and grow from mistakes. And also, just because I mess up here and there doesn't mean I'm a failure. Have strong opinions. I think opinions are overrated. Being very opinionated just makes you an unpleasant, close-minded person to be around. Meditation teacher Joseph Goldstein once said, certainty is not an indicator of truth. I like that. Just because you have an opinion and are certain of it doesn't mean you're right. It doesn't make it true. And if you can be flexible with your opinion, it's like a superpower. Now you won't feel threatened when someone has a different point of view. The way I see it, opinions should be like clothes. We wear them for different occasions, but they don't define us. Just like we aren't our clothes, we aren't our opinions either. So those are 40 tiny habits I quit to simplify my life. There are also 15 everyday habits that many consider normal that I stopped doing. I made a separate video about that. If that sounds interesting, you can watch it by clicking right here. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you got some inspiration. Let me know if any of this resonated with you in the comments. And I'd love to see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.